Welcome back, folks. Sheepdog Smokey here, and we've got a rare 3-video day. This is something I saw a few days ago on, I believe it was YouTube, it may have been on Twitter, but it was basically someone complaining about Superman Red Son, claiming that DC got woke, and that it is a Bernie Sanders propaganda thing, and that it's anti-capitalism, and so on and so forth. There is some truth and there is some lie to that. The one thing that person does not ever talk about, I don't know if they even know, Superman Red Son is very, very much an old story. This version was written less than 20 years ago, but the whole alternate universe thing is a well-used trope by Marvel and DC for some time. DC a bit more. Until recently, but still, the multiverse is not an unknown or unused thing. Very recently on CW in the Arrowverse, they had Crisis on Earth X, where originally they thought there was something like 100 Earths, and found out there was one more where the Nazis won World War II, Supergirl is a Nazi tool, and so on and so forth. Then we get to Crisis on Infinite Earths, find out that there truly is an infinite number of Earths. Quite a bit before that, there's the animated series, or movie, Crisis on Multiple Earths, where we meet Ultraman and Superwoman and Owlman. And it's just something that's been done quite a bit, honestly. And it's not about getting woke, it's about basically the question of what if. Marvel is even bringing their what if storyline to Disney Plus, where we're going to get a look at their alternate universes where, Cap didn't go into the ice, or Cap didn't save them in a certain way or whatever. Hydra Cap, which really made a lot of people mad when it came out in print. But getting back to this one, Superman Red Son, very simply, is a different twist on Gods and Monsters. They're, as I like to say, they're playing with nature versus nurture. And Gods and Monsters, in my mind, failed that because they changed both nature and nurture. The idea of nature versus nurture experiments is you take something, you take a child, in this case, Kal-El of Krypton, Superman, son of Jor and Lara El, and you have him raised by someone other than Jonathan and Martha Kent. In Gods and Monsters, though, he is the son of Zod and Lara, and they retcon to where it is not like in Man of Steel, where Jor and Lara have a baby the old-fashioned way, but it is this engineering where in the movie you see Zod give a drop of blood. So you changed nature right there, and they changed nurture by having Superman raised by Hispanic migrants. In this one, though, in Red Son, it is very much a what-if on nature versus nurture. Now, forgive me if I get anything wrong on this, but this movie is an adaptation of Red Son, and this is basically on the original timeline, not the current timeline where Kal is roughly my age, late 30s, early 40s. Bruce is pushing 60, and Diana is over 100. This is the original timeline where Kal lands not too far before World War II, and then ultimately this story takes place at the height of the Cold War, where it is 1980s Russia. So what we're used to from the current DC universe is Henry Cavill's Kal-El, who is, like I said, roughly my age, within a few years, so late 30s, early 40s. Bruce is mid to late 50s. Diana is over 100. This one has what I believe to be the original timeline, where, Bruce might have been born in mid to late 20s, and Kal lands in the late 30s. Diana would be roughly Kal's age, and it is pushing that storyline for their ages to be right for the Cold War. Pardon me. As opposed to the current canon where It is very much truth, justice, and the American way. Raised in Kansas. I mean, they had that line of Man of Steel. I was raised in Kansas. So this is basically him raised in Soviet Russia at the height of the Cold War. If you've read or seen Dark Knight Returns, you'll know that in that one they have him portrayed, they basically portray this as being in the mid-80s, as a tool of the American government. They're using the timeline of he arrived roughly in the 40s and 50s, so he's just a few years older than Bruce, but this is the original kind of very first timeline of Superman, so that by the time we get to the 80s, Bruce is in his 60s, or so roundabout there, getting old, can't be Batman, and Superman is doing the bidding of the U.S. government and is sent to deal with problems. In this, it's very much the same. He is very much a servant of the Soviet Union, complete with Joseph Stalin and so on and so forth. They have Diana, they have a version of Batman, they have a version of the Green Lantern Corps, so they're very much pulling on this being alternate universe. This is in no way a socialism propaganda film. I mean, for crying out loud, DC has made billions thanks to capitalism. Okay? They would never have made money had this world that they're portraying in Red Son been reality. So it's not in any way, hey, let's praise this political structure over that one. It is literally someone who came up with an alternate universe. For crying out loud, look at the Punisher movies. You have the one with Thomas Jane, then you get the one with Ray Stevenson, and you have, I believe there was one with Dolph Lundgren, don't know for sure on that. Ultimately, we get to the current run with John Bernthal, and they retcon all the time, to where the origin story is slightly different, the time frame is slightly different, and on and on and on. It's a story, is all it is. I don't want to go too far for those of you who haven't read the book and haven't watched any of the clips, because I don't want to spoil the movie, because from what I've seen, they're staying very true to the print run they're pulling from. And it is quite literally a what-if story. What if Superman had landed in the Soviet Union and had grown up and been in his late 30s and early 40s at the height of the Cold War, right around 1980. So that's what we're looking at here. It is not in any way a praise or a condemnation of one political thought or another. DC knows very well they have to ride the fence. They can't be pro or anti-Trump, pro or anti-Bernie, or Biden, or Sanders, or Warren, or Romney, or Ryan, or anyone. Okay, they didn't put Barack Obama into the Spider-Man comics because they loved his policies. He was president at the time. And they asked him if they could actually make him a character in the Spider-Man comic book. And Barack Obama said yes. Had they done this between 2000 and 2001 to 9, and asked George W. Bush, and he had said yes, that would have been it. It was literally Spider-Man meeting the president. And the only reason they did it that way is Marvel doesn't set their story in a fictional Earth. We have New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., London, Madrid, Paris, Moscow, Beijing. This is Earth. It's our Earth. The only difference between our Earth that we live on every day and the MCU is the existence of their heroes. They wanted to have a storyline where the President of the United States featured very heavily. They asked the current president at the time. He agreed. Barack Obama became a comic book character. DC, on the other hand, has Metropolis instead of New York. They have Coast City instead of, say, San Francisco. They very much say this is not the same Earth you live on. And it gives them a lot more leeway. They don't have to portray New York. They can use any major city they want to be Metropolis or Gotham or Bay City, Coast City, whatever they want. It's just the way they do business. I have no qualms about letting people know my beliefs. I very much did vote for Donald Trump in 2016, and I will vote for him again in 2020. Strongly believe that the Democratic Party is imploding right now, and they are very close to exploding because they are embracing policies that are so far out of line with what people are thinking and wanting that they're alienating a lot of people. But I don't go so far as to say this movie is propaganda for socialism, because I know the truth about the story. And that is the one thing that is a very much a core belief of mine. Learn the truth. Go do your research. In this case, Google Superman Red Son comic book date. You'll find out it came out quite a while before Donald Trump was even considering being a candidate. Long before Bernie Sanders was even considering running for president. You'll find out it is set in the 1980s, when the Cold War was very much a thing, socialism versus capitalism was very much a thing, and it is literally just, what if Superman landed in Russia, not the United States? And trust me, honestly, if Superman landed in Russia and was raised by poor Russians until the government found out about his abilities and decided we can ingratiate ourselves to him by either saving him from a disaster that takes his parents or elevating them. I haven't read it in long enough. I don't know which one it is, and the little bit I've allowed myself to watch doesn't discuss it. And I don't want to get into it because I want to go into this having just that base knowledge that, like I have had for every comic book movie I've watched. You know, it's a distraction for me. For crying out loud, I did actually enjoy Green Lantern with Ryan Reynolds. You have to ignore everything and just say this is a distraction for an hour and a half to 2 hours. But don't try to force your politics to apply to a movie that it doesn't apply to. If someone made a movie where their goal was to aid Bernie Sanders in his run, go for it. Build it up, tear it down, however your politics go in. You know where I'd be. But when you start applying it to stuff like this, where it is, oh, this is a Bernie Sanders propaganda film, or this is DC getting woke, you're just making a fool of yourself. Honestly, in my mind, comic books are an area that, to be honest, should be politics free, and for the most part they are. Okay, we don't get major political things out of it, okay? Yes, I know, Batwoman is Kane, I forget her first name, I haven't watched the show and read the comics in a while, but Kate Kane. And people were praising or vilifying CW for having an LGBT character, when of course they already had Sarah Lance. But Kate Kane was not flipped or retconned to be a lesbian. That was literally her character from day one. The same with Alex Danvers. Okay, they went through that with her. And it does not detract from the story because it's not being pushed as a political point. It just is who the character is, okay? If they took Kal-El, the Kal-El we all know, okay, the character originally portrayed by George Reeves and ultimately Christopher Reeves, Brandon Routh, now Henry Cavill, Tyler Hoechlin on the CW, and all of a sudden he is a gay black man, that would be something that is going to turn a lot of fans away from the series. But, as Michael B. Jordan flat out said, I'm not the right guy to play Kal-El. But if you want to go for Steel, who is actually a cyborg Superman, who was a black man, or if you want to find some of these other interpretations of the Kryptonian hero or the hero Superman, he rattled off a couple of them, proving his comic book cred. And he said he'd love to play those if they had that. He flat out said, don't make a character change race or gender or sexual orientation to fit a political push. Lord knows there are enough characters out there that you could find one of them that's existing and make the show. Ruby Rose is killing it from everything I hear as Batwoman. Superman Red Son is going to do very well, I'm sure. And the reason for those things, the reason the CW Arrowverse and the MCU and the DC animated movies do so well is they don't twist the comic book story to fit a political message. For crying out loud, the only thing that I could even remotely use is Flash. In the comic book, Iris and Joe West are white. She's blonde, Joe's blonde. This is something written in the 70s and 80s when the Flash was dating a blonde pinup. Okay? It's just the way it was written. But the Berlantes said, I want to find the best person to play Iris West and Joe West. And they found amazing actors. They never play up the race issue. They don't mention it. Okay? There has been zero reference to Flash being white, Iris being black, and, oh, Lord, you're dating people of opposite race. They don't do that. They just have amazing actors playing a role that they are doing very well in. So, even that one that you could twist if you worked at it can't be twisted enough. So, I've talked long enough. Let me know what you think about this. Please remain civil. I have one other request on this. Please do not post spoilers without a warning. And, if you're going to give a comment, do spoiler alert. Give me 5 or 7 carriage returns so that you have to click read more. So respect people who haven't seen it and don't want it spoiled. That way they can go into it fresh and just watch the movie. Until next time, please remember to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you can be kept abreast of all new content as it posts. Until next time, everyone have a wonderful day.